Happy holiday season, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar on mental wellness during the holidays and the COVID-19 pandemic. My name is Katie Kowalski. I work in the Education Department at NORD, and we're really glad that you're here with us today. While the approval of effective COVID-19 vaccines appears imminent, the pandemic is continuing and the number of coronavirus cases in the United States is rising. People from the rare community are fatigued from the changes to their normal life and the continued need to stay physically distanced and a growing sense of isolation. Meanwhile, the holidays that are traditionally a time of gathering and togetherness are approaching. We need to do our best to maintain both physical and mental wellness through the holidays and through the entire pandemic. I hope that during today's webinar we can share tips and strategies that will be useful for you. I'd like to share that for over 30 years, NORD has led the fight to improve the lives of people with rare diseases. To learn more about NORD, please visit our website at rarediseases.org, and you can also follow NORD on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And now a few logistics. This webinar is being recorded. We'll be sending the slides and the recording to everyone who registered for today's webinar. We will be answering questions at the end of the presentation. If you have a question, you can submit it through the chat function, which is at the left-hand side of the window. NORD offers an array of patient assistance programs, including disease-specific programs, COVID-19 relief programs, and a caregiver respite program. You can access a complete listing using the link shared here. And often what patients need the most is information and resources. So for help with questions like finding specialists or clinical trials, obtaining genetic counseling, and many others, please feel free to call or write NORD's information and resources staff. And now it's my pleasure to introduce our speakers. Tamara Mishak is a licensed professional counselor and a national board-certified counselor. She has a special understanding of complex and chronic medical conditions as she herself lives with 3 different rare disorders. Tamara currently serves as the Oklahoma ambassador for NORD's Rare Action Network. She also speaks at healthcare conferences and to new medical professionals about the challenges that rare disease patients and families face. And Albert Friedman has a unique voice as a counseling psychologist and the father of an adult son with a rare disease. He specializes in working with families affected by complex medical conditions and provides consultation to rare disease advocacy organizations, pharmaceutical companies, and healthcare providers. Dr. Friedman speaks nationally and internationally on the emotional experience of individuals and families affected by rare disease. Dr. Friedman's 25-year-old son, Jack, lives with spinal muscular atrophy. So we're really thrilled to have you with us today. We look forward to hearing from you, and I would like to invite Tamara to get us started.
Thank you, Katie, so much for the opportunity to speak about this important topic. 2020 has been extraordinary and has tested us in countless ways. Just as our Thanksgivings took on different appearances, so will the December holiday season. As Katie mentioned, I am a counselor and rare disease patient with a rare headache disorder and Ehlers-Danlos syndrome that in turn led to a cerebral spinal fluid leak. I always welcome the opportunity to share my connection to rare with others, and one thing that always stands out when I work with other families with rare diseases is the fact that our stories are so similar. Many continue to feel vulnerable as the pandemic continues. But as a community, we are uniquely prepared for a time such as this, as we have a lot of experience dealing with many of the aspects of what has been happening over the last year. We have experience dealing with change in our lives due to illness and diagnoses. I wanted to include a picture of my son, Michael, because he has been on this journey with me that's been filled with gradual and sudden changes. This is our "we got this" pose. My road to an official EDS diagnosis took over 40 years, and during that time, I slowly learned to work with my changing body with increased limitations. But to say that my life changed suddenly in June of 2016 is an understatement. This is when I experienced a CSF leak that ultimately forced me to seek medical retirement. As a community, we know how to deal with change. We also know how to juggle multiple roles. We're used to living with uncertainty, as many of us live with limited treatment options and with uncertain futures. And we live with certain amount of isolation, as we have always had to live in our exposure to others due to compromised immune systems. While we are uniquely prepared, the emotional toll on patients, caregivers, and family members is still very real and normal, but we are resourceful, adaptive, and resilient. Now, over the weekend, I called my family, who all live in Colorado, to let them know that Michael and I had decided to once again postpone coming up. By the time we see them next, it will be well over a year. The holidays are going to look different, but they don't have to be just like last year or like they always have been. Spend some time thinking about what is important and then find ways to capture those things. Most of us associate holidays with getting together with families and friends, and relationships are essential to our health. So we have to find new ways to stay connected. Take advantage of video calls. Start a round-robin newsletter or a recipe exchange. Send holiday cards or even Thanksgiving cards in December, because we still have a lot to be thankful for. This may also be a good year to start new traditions or be creative in celebrating the old ones. I reminded Mom and Dad that we are an Air Force family and we know how to do this. We have always lived away from family. Today I'm reminding each of you that we are a rare disease family and we know how to do this. Choosing your playlist, your focus, is one of the most important things we can do for our mental wellness. Ask someone to describe the year 2020, and I'm willing to bet that few have many nice things to say, even though there have still been many good things happening. Every day we have a choice to focus on the negative things, or we can focus on the greater reality of our lives and focus on what is going well, and on the resourceful and adaptive nature that comes with being a member of the rare disease community. Sometimes we have to make this choice every few hours or even more often. The point is that there's a great power in choosing what we focus on. Is it easy? Not always. And if you're like me, sometimes it feels as if it's one thing after the other, and even more challenging to focus on the good things, but they're still there. While I would like to be healthy and able to do everything I want to do, my life has been forever changed. But I have grown immensely as a person and in my faith. My life is very full. And I have met amazing people on this journey who I never would have known, and I'm better for these relationships. You don't have to ignore the icky stuff. It's not healthy to do that. But you do get to choose how much energy you give it. I invite you to listen to my playlist and focus in on what is going well. Now, a lot of people who have self-care, and they roll their eyes, and they say they don't have the time or the money to invest in it. But the truth is that it actually doesn't take a lot to maintain a healthy lifestyle. It isn't about spending money on gym memberships or buying expensive food. Health is actually a combination of the mind, body, and the spirit. Your mind plays a significant role in your wellness plan. After all, your brain is the control center of your body. I like to think of it as a muscle. We can help it grow and get stronger to work for our benefit, but we have to be really careful about what we feed our minds. Because if we constantly feed it junk, those negative thoughts, then we only find more negative. So be careful of DRAs, dirty, rotten attitudes, and we're all guilty of having those at times. Our minds also need breaks. Doesn't mean we're weak, just means we're human and need those breaks. So be sure and take mental health breaks. Read, listen to music. In today's day and age, we need to take digital breaks and possibly adjust our intake of news. And I do realize how complicated our lives are, but do what you can to even get a few minutes to yourself. Next is our body. Our bodies are most often associated with wellness. Try to get some physical activity at whatever level you can participate. I definitely have had to adjust my level of exercise to match what my body can do now. So just take time to match what your body can do. Get some vitamin D from the sun. And don't forget about sleep. It's the best way to regenerate your body. Eat as healthy as possible. And just remember that every little thing helps. Do whatever you can do. In a general sense, spirit represents hope from within, and there's several ways to achieve spiritual wellness. As a Christian, prayer, Bible study, and attending church are important aspects of taking care of my spirit. I get a sense of comfort, belonging, peace, and hope through the way I practice my faith. Whatever your faith, wherever you receive your hope and comfort, make a point to include time in your day for that. Possibly meditate. Definitely connect with others. Relationships, especially those with similar circumstances, are vital. While we may not have the same health issues, most rare disease warriors and families share similar stories. I love NORD's motto, and it fits perfectly. Alone we are rare, together we are strong. Connect with others. Forgive and let go. This means forgive yourself and others, and show gratitude in all things. Take your cue from Santa. Do everything you can to make life a little easier and less stressful. Pace yourself and start early. Make a list. Check it twice. This can help you not stress out as much since you know everything will get done. Plan ahead. You can shop online now. You can even do this locally. And take advantage of curbside pickup. I recently discovered Walmart pickup, and I am a huge fan. So take advantage of all those pickups. Meals, order your holiday meal. Prep as much as you can before. Conducting an experiment on your family, all in the name of science, of course. See if they notice if you bought the pumpkin pie this year. And get help preparing the meals. Don't forget to schedule in those breaks. Delegate and ask for help. I used to think that it would be harder to have help, but it can actually make things easier if we know how to ask for help and use that help. So have a list ready for when people ask how they can help. You can also designate somebody as the point person, especially if you're going through a particularly hard time at that point. Give everyone in your family a job to do, no matter how small, because this can help everybody in your family feel important as if they're helping, and it can help you to get things done. And then also be prepared to let some things go. It's not the time to be perfectionist. The last thing is to give to others and serve others. Research shows that those who serve others through volunteering live longer and live happier lives. So there's several ways that we can do this. We can do that financially. We can give up our time. We can do that on social media by promoting organizations. Write thank you notes, especially to our medical teams and staff, and to people who have helped you along on your journey. However you choose to give, you will definitely get health benefits from it. I'd like to thank everybody again for the opportunity to speak today. 2020 has most certainly been challenging for so many people, but we as a community are uniquely prepared. We are a rare disease family, and we know how to get things done. We most definitely know how to take care of each other, because alone we are rare, but together we are strong. And as Michael and I would tell you, you got this. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Albert Friedman.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Tamara. And thank you both for your wonderful presentation and for introducing me. My name is Al Friedman. I'm a practicing counseling psychologist, and I specialize in working with families affected by disability and complex medical needs, and many who are affected by rare disease. I'm coming to you live from picturesque Westchester, Pennsylvania, and it's a pleasure to be with our community this afternoon. I'm going to follow Tamara's presentation by sharing a few additional thoughts on how we as members of the rare disease community can best make our way through the holidays. As we know, the holidays are a stressful time for everybody each year. Those of us who are affected by rare disease have a second challenge, and now we're living with a pandemic. So there are three reasons that we in the rare disease community are understandably challenged by this period of time. I'm going to share a few additional thoughts to complement what Tamara just shared. Being a professional psychologist and providing counseling to others provides me with a very helpful window into the lives of others affected by rare disease. But my personal experience as a father of a young man named Jack who lives with a rare disease has provided me with a firsthand 25-year journey and a very special and important window. When baby Jack was diagnosed with this rare disease 25 and a half years ago, there was no treatment, no cure, and we were not given much hope for his future. So I feel very thankful to be able to share with this community and be part of this community with my 25-and-a-half-year-old son, Jack, always by my side. Like Tamara, I'm a member of our community, and I feel honored to be here today to support our community. These are indeed uncertain times, and it's hard for all of us to live with uncertainty. But it is possible to be happy and healthy while living with uncertainty. Because of the global pandemic, the whole world now has joined our rare disease community, and everybody is now living with uncertainty. So it's not just our community now, but we have lots of practice that others don't have. Many of us affected by rare disease have been living with uncertainty for many months or years or decades, and it's not easy. It's obviously and definitely not easy. It certainly hasn't been for me as a dad. But uncertainty in its own way can also be helpful to us, and it is possible to be able to have a fulfilled life while living with uncertainty. I have found, and so have my clients, that uncertainty helps us to take nothing for granted. Uncertainty helps us to notice the good days and to appreciate the good days that we have and to deepen our appreciation for those good days when things are going well. Uncertainty helps us to keep things in perspective. Everybody else's big problems are often our very small problems. While we're all living with uncertainty, I think it's important that we all focus on what we can control rather than on what we can't control. A focus on what we can control gives us strength, gives us hope, and gives us confidence. And as we move through the holidays, during such a complicated time in the world, we do know that there are many things we can't control at the moment. But if we focus too much of our attention on all the things we can't control, it causes us to be filled with fear. But if we focus on what we can control, it fills us with hope and strength. So what can we control in this situation that's so uncertain and so complicated? We can control how we take care of ourselves. I have found in my work as a psychologist that many problems are solved by paying attention to sleeping and paying attention to eating, nutrition and sleep, as Tamara mentioned, getting fresh air, getting sunlight, anything that we can do to take care of ourselves and to replenish ourselves. That is in our control. We are intentional about paying attention to our own needs. The second thing that we control is how we stay connected to other people. We all, as human beings, need connection. And during this pandemic, it's not as easy to stay connected to other people. So we do have control if we use technology as we're using today and we reach out to people. We can control our ability to be connected and to stay connected to other people if we're intentional and purposeful about doing that. We can control how we use our time, how we spend our time. We do have control when we get up each morning over how we use our time. I think it's important for us to limit our exposure to the news because there's so much very difficult news. And it's important for us to get the information we need to keep ourselves and others safe. That's helpful. But too much news will trigger fear and anxiety, which isn't helpful. So it's, I think, important for us to take control over the time we spend doing certain things, focus on things other than COVID-19 so that we can take breaks from thinking about it, enjoy ourselves, do some fun things, watch a movie, watch a TV show, read a good book, enjoy doing anything with our families that's entertaining and fun, and take breaks from what's happening in the world right now. That is in our control. It's also in our control to create and maintain routines. Keeping to our familiar routines will help us feel more comfortable and in control. And trying to be creative with maintaining holiday rituals and the routines that we have during this time of the year, however we celebrate the holidays, can help us feel more comfortable and more in control. Finally, another thing for those of us in the rare disease community that's very important is how we plan and how we prepare. We're always going to feel safer and we're going to feel better if we have a healthcare plan that we're comfortable with, that we follow all the protocols that we usually follow given our medical situation. We'll feel in control if we have caregivers in our home, as I do with my son, that we have protocols in place to help keep our family members safe during such an uncertain time. So how we plan, how we prepare is in our control. Our ability and our desire and our commitment to focusing on what we can control can go a long way towards helping us through this period of uncertainty. Gratitude goes a very long way, and during the period of the holidays, Thanksgiving, through the New Year, Hanukkah, and Christmas, gratitude goes a long way. And the holidays are a special time for showing gratitude. Those of us who are affected by rare disease, we face a lot of difficult challenges. But we also have many people in our corners along the way who help us. And when we show gratitude to those who care about us and provide care to us, it sends positive energy from us to others. And that positive energy always reflects back to us. Showing gratitude to our own family members for their support, our local communities, our rare disease communities, our friends who stick with us through thick and thin, our healthcare providers and doctors and nurses and so many others who are part of our care team, and the scientists who are working hard to find treatments for our rare diseases, and our friends in the rare disease community who truly understand us. All of these people are part of the web of our lives, part of the fabric of our lives. And I find it helpful at a personal level to reach out during this time of year with a phone call, with a card in the mail, with even an email, any communication to express our gratitude and our appreciation for the contributions that people have made along the way to support us who are struggling with challenges goes a long way. And that positive energy lasts and sustains itself into the new year as our caregivers and our friends and our family members continue to stick with us. Gratitude goes a long way. And I can tell you from personal experience that when I pick up the phone and I make a few phone calls each year during this time to my son's care professionals, nurses, doctors, wheelchair repair people, I could go on and on. It means so much to them to be thanked for what they do because their jobs are hard and they often receive calls most of the time when those people like us have problems to solve, where we're sick, where we need help, where the wheelchair breaks. They rarely are thanked when things are going well. They don't hear good news all the time, so they're grateful for the good news when they do hear it and when things are stable and when we show our gratitude. Gratitude goes a long way. During this period of uncertainty and during the holidays, it's really important for us to stay connected to our friends and our family. We all need connection. The pandemic is so difficult for all of us because it is forcing us to stay apart from each other. It's pushing us apart. And the holidays are a time when we typically come together. This holiday season is no different than any other in terms of our need as human beings to be connected to other people. So this holiday season, we need to make a special effort to make this happen. We need to be creative and we need to be intentional to stay connected with the people we love and care about during the holiday season. It'll be important for all of us to use technology as we are today to stay connected with others. Just as we, when there's not a pandemic, plan meetings or dinners or parties at certain times and days. That's how we know when to show up for the dinner or when to show up for the holiday party. Well, those parties aren't happening this year, but we have to be just as intentional, I believe, in order to have the connection that we need. So it might be a Zoom meeting or a phone call at a certain time, at a certain date, in place of a holiday party that allows you to stay connected. We'll all need to be creative with our family's holiday rituals and the holiday rituals we have through our workplaces. We'll all feel better over the holidays if we can stay connected intentionally with those that we care about as best we can under these very unusual conditions. I'd like to finish my part of the presentation by also acknowledging that along with the rare diseases that our family members are affected by, and my son, Jack, is affected by a complicated rare disease, I've discovered along the way and like to use this opportunity during the holidays to also celebrate some of the unanticipated rare gifts that have come from this experience with my son and so many others in the rare disease community. And I think it's important for us to not only acknowledge the challenges and the burdens of rare disease, but to also celebrate some of the unusual and unique gifts. It's taken me 25 years to kind of figure this out, but I now have come to see my son and his situation with a different dimension, a different pair of lenses. And I believe so many of the other children and families I've come to know model a lot of unique and rare gifts, including the gift of resilience. Our rare disease community is full of people who get back up after they get knocked down, who bounce back after a difficult period. Our rare disease community members offer the gift of perspective. I know that when my son drives his wheelchair into a room, without saying a word, everybody else's big problems get smaller. He offers the rare gift of perspective to other people. And I also see my son and people like him in the rare disease community as having the gift of attracting very compassionate, open-hearted people into their lives. So many wonderful people have come into my son's life because they've been inspired by what he does bring to the world and by the gifts that he gives. And because of that, we know so many wonderful, compassionate, open-hearted people. I think it's important for all of us to celebrate the holidays. There are reasons to celebrate, and also to find and celebrate the silver linings that come with our unique situation will help us all to feel better and to feel more fulfilled. I'd like to wrap up by thanking everybody at NORD for their support during the holiday period and for the opportunity to participate in this webinar. I wish you all a wonderful holiday season. I'm going to turn it back over to Katie. I hope this was helpful, and I believe we're going to move into a Q&A period, and I'm happy to help, along with Tamara, to respond to your question. And thank you so much for having me.
Great. So thank you, Al, and thank you, Tamara, for those really hopeful presentations. I wish I had some holiday music I could put on in the background. But, I know that you're both not only talking the talk, but walking the walk along with the rare disease community, and you shared some really great guidance that we hope will be helpful to our listeners. I know it'll be helpful for me. So yes, we collected questions from participants during the registration and also during the live webinar, and so we will now move to the Q&A session. And just as a reminder, we are going to be sending the slides and the webinar recording out to everybody who registered for this webinar. So Tamara, I think I'll start with you. We had a number of people who wrote in talking about loneliness and coping with loneliness. So the question is, do you have any advice for people who are living alone during the holidays?
Well, I think this is actually a good question for me as I live alone, so I can definitely speak from a personal perspective for this. I've spent many holidays by myself because all of my family lives out of state, and I wanted my son to experience a big holiday experience with his dad's family who lives in town. And so I've been able to put into practice many of the things that we talked about earlier in my presentation. But, I created new traditions, and Thanksgiving and Christmas became my days when I did things that I wanted to do. And initially maybe it was, it definitely was a little bit hard. But then I created these new traditions, and there were actually several years I went fishing, which were just something I wanted to do. So be creative. And then I maintained some of those old traditions that were family oriented. I definitely stayed connected with family and friends, reached out to them as Al said during those days. I actually went to some stores that were open and took some goodie bags to some of the employees that working. I live in a college town, and there were several college students who were working, and put into practice that choosing to focus on what was important and staying connectedness. I also planned some projects and wouldn't start them until the holiday season, and so it gave me something to do. And so a lot of it was the focus and having a plan and the staying connected were the things that have really helped me and the things that have helped my clients as I've worked with them through the loneliness of the holidays or not having family around during the holidays.
Great. Thank you, Tam. What a great response. And you gave some great examples. And, yeah, you're making me want to go fishing. Okay. So, Al, we've heard from listeners who are, talking about having some real ups and downs during this pandemic. So one of our listeners wrote in that if a funk creeps in on me and, what's the best way for me to quickly get myself back to a healthy mental state and a healthy mental balance?
Well, thanks, Katie. That's a great question, and I know one that we're all challenged by right now during the pandemic. It's such a difficult time. It's winter time now, so in part of the country where I live, it's getting colder and darker sooner. And we're all going through our various ups and downs, however they play out for us. But to answer the question, the best way to quickly get back to a healthier mental balance, I think that the strategy that I'd like to offer my clients and patients is the concept of changing the channel, like you're watching TV. And what I mean by that is you want to think about what helps us. What are we doing when we feel better? What kinds of things do we do when we're feeling better? And so changing the channel to me means, for me, it can mean just taking a walk outside. It can mean listening to music. It can be reading a book that gives me comfort. It can be calling up my brother on the telephone or a friend. It means doing something different than I'm doing at the moment that I'm feeling that funk. And for all of us, what we do to change a channel or to change gears and to do something different is different for each of us. No two of us do that in the same way. But what I often tell my patients when things aren't going well or if something they're doing isn't working, whatever it is, I often say, well, if what you're doing isn't working very well, then it's time to try something else. So let's talk about something else, an alternative to what you're doing that might work better. So when we're in a funk, I use that same concept myself, and many of my clients do too. Try to change gears and think about the things that give us comfort when we're feeling good and to move ourselves towards those things and away from the funk. I hope that helps.
That helps a lot. No, that's actually really great. I'm going to remember to change the channel if ever the channel needs to be changed. So no, it's a really accessible way to look at how you can change your mental state. So Tamara, I have one of our listeners has asked about younger children and wrote, could you please help share some ideas for helping younger children with stress during the pandemic?
Sure. Actually, I'm working in our children's ministry in our church right now, so this one hits close to home too. And I've had several parents ask me this very question. And one of the things that I've been telling the parents is model calm, because younger children especially don't understand what is going on, but they can sense that tension. And the more calm you remain as a parent, the more your children will be reassured. The parents or the children may react to stress with behavior changes, and this is normal. But again, the more calm that you remain, the more calm your children will probably remain. Routine is going to be helpful for your children, just as it's helpful to us. It is even more helpful to your children. You can encourage hobbies to keep them involved. Support connections with their friends. They may, depending on what part of the country you're in. I'm in Oklahoma, and we've been open for quite some time, but I know in other parts of the country, things are closed up a lot more. So you might have to be really creative in those, outside, virtual, but do everything you can to foster those connections still. And communicate with children, because while they are small, they communicate. It's so important to be honest with them and listen to their concerns. And if you don't know the answers, it's okay to say that you don't know, but that you can look up the information or try and find out the information. I think one of the biggest things that you can do is to be hopeful about the future, because that's part of that calm. But if you are negative, then they are going to pick up on that. And so I think that's one of the biggest things that we can do, is to model that hopeful attitude about the future, because we will get through this, and they need to know that.
Great. Thanks, Tamara. So those are just such great examples. Thank you for that answer. Al, we have a question about putting limits on gatherings in the midst of COVID. And I know that we've probably all had to, encounter this, especially around the holidays. Do you get together with your family? Don't you? So our registrant writes, what are some loving and kind ways to put limits around communication and gathering in the midst of COVID?
Well, thanks, Katie. I just want to also compliment Tamara on, that was a wonderful set of ideas for kids. I've been working with kids for a long time, and I think what you said is really helpful. And the only thing I would add is that we want our children to behave certain ways and to feel certain ways. And as you said, Tamara, we're models for our kids. So when we're under stress, we want to behave in the same ways we want to see our kids behave. They're going to imitate us, and they're going to move to that level of worry or that level of intensity that we're modeling for them. You couldn't have expressed that concept any better. Thank you. Katie, to your question about limits around communications and gathering, I think it's important first to make a distinction between communication and gathering. Obviously, because of COVID, we all have to be conservative. Those of us with rare disease, I know in my case, have to be very conservative about the level of risk that I take because of this virus. So gathering has inherently a higher level of risk. Gathering inside versus gathering outside have different levels of risk. Gathering with masks on and gathering with masks off at different levels of risk. So those of us in the rare disease community have to be conservative if your situation is similar to my son's and to take less risk. And when we're dealing with family members who are making decisions about family events, some of our family members and extended family members maybe won't feel the same way we feel about assuming risk. We have to be careful with how much risk we assume. So in a loving and kind way, we may need to educate others. The further away our family member or friend is from our medical vulnerability and situation, the more they may need to be educated about why we can't assume as high a level of risk as they may be able to. That's in the context of in-person gathering. Now, communication is different than gathering because we can communicate, as I said earlier in the presentation, using technology. And if we can find creative ways to have our family rituals and our holiday rituals without assuming a high level of in-person risk, we can still have close communication and we can still have the rituals that we have come to know over the years. So as far as putting limits around all of this, it's a matter of educating others who may not be as aware of the reason why we in the rare disease community need to be more conservative without passing judgment on other people's decisions. We don't want others to pass judgment on our decisions, and we shouldn't pass judgment on others' decisions as long as they're not causing us to be put in a situation that is high risk. I hope that helps.
Yes, very helpful. Thank you, Al. Caregivers are very, very important stakeholders in the rare community. And I have a question from a caregiver. Maybe you can take this one, Tamara. As a caregiver to a person with a rare disease, what are some ways to create time for myself?
That is an excellent question and a difficult position to be in many times. It's hard, and the first thing I'm going to suggest is to make time. And I know that sounds like a silly answer, but that's one of the things that sometimes we just have to prioritize to create that time. And the next thing I'll say is maybe a little bit more helpful, is to be honest with people that you love and share your needs. The next part of that is to let people help. And I'm going to give you a real world example. My aunt has recently been diagnosed with a very rare form of breast cancer. And she's also the caregiver for her husband. And this just happened yesterday that my mom told me about it. She told my mom that she doesn't have any time or place where she's alone, where she can just be. And so just for her to have kind of a place in a little space, my mom and dad offered their place as a little oasis, place where she can just have an hour or even 30 minutes or 2 hours, whatever she needs, as a place where she can just be. Because we all need the space. I've told another friend of mine, another friend of mine has said, sometimes you just have to lock yourself in the bathroom to get away from the kiddos, or sometimes you just need to spend some time in the shower and have a good cry, because you just have to have some time to yourself. You've got to accept some help. Take advantage of some respite care programs. The Ward has a respite care program, and these programs offer breaks for caregivers to attend conferences, events, or simply just an afternoon or an evening away from caregiving. And most states have similar programs. So even if it's to whatever you have to do just to get out invite somebody over to sit with whoever you are taking care of. Even if it's to go take a walk around the block, just to do something, just to have just a little bit of time for yourself. It's so much more healthy for yourself. So try and do whatever you can to take that time. Thank you.
Yeah, some really good ideas there, Tamara. Thank you. So this 45 minutes has just zipped right by very quickly, so we are unfortunately out of time. But I want to thank you, Tamara and Al, for sharing your expertise and your just outstanding holiday and pandemic coping ideas with us today. Special thanks to everyone in our audience for joining us. And after this webinar, you're going to receive a very short survey. Please complete it because it helps us to develop future webinars that you will enjoy. So thank you, everybody, and a happy holidays from NORD to all of you.